two, one. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting film journey here on Inside Movies Galore, where we will bring you chills, thrills, and woo. We are doing a Universal Monster Month, I believe, and the first choice that was chosen was one that was my fiance Tammy's choice. So why don't you tell us what movie we have in store for these ladies and gentlemen?
Okay, it's the 1931 Dracula, starring Bela Lugosi. And oh, Jesus.
Come to me, come closer.
And some of the other stars in it were Helen Chandler, David Manners, Dwight Fry, and among others. It was the main thing about it was let's see, IMDb says Transylvanian vampire Count Dracula bends a naive real estate agent to his will, then takes up residence at a London estate where he sleeps in his coffin by day and then searches for potential victims by night. So, well, before we get into it, let's see what everybody else has thought about it and is first time or whatever. So, Kroll, was this your first time?
No, not at all. I saw it a bunch of times as a kid. I think, okay, it's not that I don't like it now, but I've noticed that some of the things are just, I don't know, seem a little cornier than they did as a kid. To me, it was like Dracula was just the number one badass of all time. And I love Bela Lugosi, but, and of course this has to do with the acting then, but, like the way he flipped around his cape, with the cross and stuff is just kind of a little corny. But I mean, I still love it. Not saying I don't, but and I don't know. I guess I remembered, Dracula biting people and stuff, and you actually don't see that, So it's just something that I probably saw other ones and just kind of put it into my memory that I saw it. So it's funny that you can remember things different than how they were, even in movies that you watched a bunch of times as a kid. So I mean, I was Dracula. I don't know how many Halloweens. I mean, sometimes Wolfman or Superman, but I was Dracula more than any of them. My mother had this necklace that was like a hypnosis necklace or something. I don't know, but it looked pretty close to the necklace that he wore, in a way. So I wore that a lot in my costume. Loved playing Dracula. Like I said, he's my I always loved vampires, and he's just always my favorite. He wasn't speedy fast like modern vampires. He wasn't super slow like Nosferatu type, and he just kind of. He just looked like a regular guy, but he had his piercing eyes. I mean that was just pure acting skill, using all his facial moves, and the way he looked at you, it was great, absolutely great. And then of course it was also a little campy the way he used his hand, come to me, um, I remember it being cooler when I was a kid. Again, still like it, but so yeah, I mean, it was fun to watch again. I hadn't seen these in quite a long time. Probably since I've been an adult, I've not seen um movies. We did Frankenstein last year. So that was the first revisit to any of these since being like a kid and growing up on them. So it was really nice to watch them. I think Frankenstein came out less campy. than Dracula did. Surprisingly, even though still Dracula's my favorite. Although as a picture goes, I'm thinking Wolfman might be better. As far as a picture, but his character Wolfman's probably my second, and Dracula's still the first. 'Cause, he's the Prince of Darkness. He's the leader. So yeah, absolutely. I love Dracula. Love different incarnations. I had actually chosen a Dracula, House of Dracula as one of my movies if it had gotten picked. And the only bad thing about that is we didn't have Bela Lugosi in it. I just was going for that because it actually had the Wolfman and Frankenstein as well as Dracula in it. So kind of a triple feature of goodness. But definitely, I wish it could have had Bela Lugosi in that one. But it was. I mean, it wasn't bad, but Bela Lugosi's still the best Dracula, in my opinion. So that's my first impression.
Okay, well, it's some of the things you said is very interesting because we actually watched some stuff after watching it the last night, and you know they were saying that the Bela Lugosi's look and how he acted and everything in here set the stage for the rest of the Dracula movies, vampire movies. Everything was basically based on how he did it. You know, he was the original Dracula, and and it's funny
Yeah,
you talk about the Wolfman because see, actually Lon Chaney Jr. was actually up for the part first of Dracula, but he passed away beforehand.
yeah.
So and the reason that Bella got it is Bella was doing it on Broadway,
I
and
didn't know that.
he was and he found out about the part, and he really wanted it, and he went after him for it, and the reason they even considered him was because he was already doing it on Broadway.
Right.
So, which was I found very interesting, but
It is
yeah,
interesting.
but well, let's see. Moving on to Forrest. This your first time, and what'd you think?
Far from my first time. This is actually a must watch for me every October. Um, I'm a huge fan of the. Huge fan of of the universe of the. I almost said Marvel, but Universal. I mean, Universal was doing the whole shared cinematic universe thing before Marvel was, with the monster movies. But Universal monsters were my were among my first forays into horror, along with Frankenstein and the Phantom of the Opera. Yeah, this is great. I love this movie. I think it's fantastic. Bela Lugosi he's perfect. He is Dracula. He truly embodies the character. And also just the production design is. I mean, I know we'll get into that, but it's just it's just such a well put together. The music, the production design, the costumes. Bela Lugosi as Dracula. It really does set the gold standard for vampire. He really did. This really does set this gold standard for vampires in film, for vampires in film and popular culture. Um, it's just, it's a classic. It's really all I can say. Or how I can summarize it. Um, Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not. I mean, yeah, it may seem very tame by modern standards, but it's still. I think it's just such a very well done. It's such a very well done movie, and it's whether and it's and and its influence, its and over vampires and the horror genre it's um it deserves every accolade it's ever got. It's deserving of all accolades. Of all of its accolades.
Okay, what I found interesting also was that back in at this time in 1930s, um, women actually thought that Lugosi was like hot.
He was a sex symbol.
Yes.
Yeah, I actually knew that. They said he was like handsome and
Yeah.
not you know, yeah.
Yeah, and sadly, he died broken. He basically died broken alone.
Figures.
If you've seen
No,
Ed Wood,
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Deadwood.
I was gonna say not quite
No, no.
alone because he did have Wood as a booster, but still, it was yeah, an interesting end.
Right. I was the thing that we were watching afterwards was his son was talking about a lot of the things that he went through and a lot of the parts he took after this, and nothing that he always put his all into every part that he played,
he did.
but nothing was as brought out him as much as it was when he did the Dracula.
Mhm.
He just was perfect for it.
Yeah, and whereas it's weird, it's strange, funny, strangely, this was actually the old so Boris Karloff played the Frankenstein's monster 3 times. Lon Chaney played the Wolfman every time. Lugosi only played this character twice in this movie, and then in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, which was
Correct.
the last movie in the series, and also obviously played for laughs.
So yep, it's sad, that, but he, on the other end,
He should have played him a lot more.
he's he is known as being Dracula, though. He started it. So what? He may not have gotten all the reckoning and everything he deserved at the time, but
Yeah, but he's very haunting in the role.
oh yeah, especially because he didn't really speak any English. He had to sit here and really he had to concentrate and actually really learn the lines because he really didn't speak any English.
Oh, so his accent's real, and he was really
Yeah, he's
trying to speak
Hungarian.
English.
I've
Nice,
heard mixed things on that. It's like supposedly he actually did speak English decently. It was just that was one of those kind of mythologies that people really liked and latched onto.
Yeah, no, he just has. I think he just had because he had been living in America for about at least a
Right.
decade by the time he got the role. But
Right.
but he still had a very thick accent.
Yeah.
Well, according to his son, he did not speak it as well as everybody thought, and he did actually have to concentrate on what he was going to say. So maybe people thought that he knew more than he did because he had been here in America so long, but according to his son, he still did not speak. He was more of like a broken English.
Well, yeah, it wasn't perfect.
But alrighty, let's see, Jake.
Well, sorry. I could not really swear to it what my first exposure to this was. Like with most of these movies, most of the Universal movies from the 30s, they're so much a part of pop culture that it's really hard to say. What was the first? I believe the first time I saw this movie in its entirety was probably either when I was in college or shortly after. I would say that is very likely the case for both this one and Frankenstein. I actually don't think I saw The Mummy and The Wolfman until later. I think when we covered The Wolfman on this channel, that may have been the first time I'd seen it, actually. But I probably saw them all in parts, and I really couldn't. Well, and everyone has seen certain clips over and over again, like the entrance of Dracula when Renfield goes into the castle in the first place. Everyone's seen that, so it's like I couldn't tell you what my first impression of that would be, but I do know very specifically that I first read the novel Bram Stoker's Dracula in ninth grade. And it's been years. I'd like to go back and read it again. It's a very interesting novel.
I'll admit, I only got around to reading it about a decade ago.
Right.
And that's after watching this movie and the Francis Ford Coppola movie multiple times.
I haven't read it, so I need to.
Oh yeah, and I've seen the Coppola film a couple of times, and we covered that on this channel.
This is so much better.
I have mixed feelings about both of them. I would say that the Coppola film was probably the first one I watched in its entirety, and then I think I had actually. I think I read the book before seeing that, but I'm a little less clear on that. This, of course, was actually based on the stage play, which I have not seen the play by Hamilton Dean. I've not seen that. They, of course, make some serious changes to the source material. And I feel like some of those changes, I don't know when the play was written, but I feel like there were moments that I felt they cribbed scenes from Nosferatu, which actually I've seen. I saw Nosferatu for the first time in college as well. And that was essentially an unlicensed knockoff of this made by people who didn't want to bother negotiating for the rights. This one, apparently Lugosi negotiated hard for the rights and got them at a price that Universal was willing to pay. So that was one of the reasons he got the role. Which again, I have to wonder about the story that he had poor English, because I really doubt he could have negotiated as effectively if he couldn't really speak much English. You know what I mean? Like, but anyway, I really kind of like the Coppola film. This is one that I always want to like more than I actually do. Lugosi is an iconic Dracula. There's no question about it. And yes, I think Tammy were the one that pointed out that so many that have come since have a debt of gratitude to this performance. There's no question. There's also elements of the movie that became part of the lore. I think Forrest already said that one line. I don't drink wine or whatever. That was something that was original to the film. So there are things that it has brought to the table that were not here before. And it's considered by many to be the first horror film, really, or one of the first horror films. At the very least, as far as in the talkie era, it was the first out of the gate of the Universal monster films. There's a lot riding on this movie, and I do not at all debate its importance. It's an important film, but it's slow. And some of the changes to the source material, I'm not crazy about.
Part of the reason why it might be slow is because Todd Browning is a silent film director.
Yeah.
And that's why you get moments of silence that technically should not be there, but they're there.
Yeah, supposedly
they were coming out of the era of the silent movies, and this was one of the first to actually not be silent,
Right. And one thing that they did point out, one of the IMDb blurbs that makes a lot of sense to me, is that filmmakers at the time still weren't sure how audiences would react to music as a regular part of a sound picture. And of course, now it seems like kind of a silly. Like, why would an audience have trouble buying a score? It seems like a silly question now, but when you really think about it, yes, they were in untested waters. So one of the reasons they didn't have an original score, they just used a few pieces of music. it makes sense. It makes perfect sense when you think about it. But yeah, overall, it's not just the silence. I just feel like this is a very methodically, slowly paced film, which doesn't bother me at all. Y'all know, remember from last week, I like my methodically paced films, but it does mean that when I'm not fully engrossed, it can drag even for me. And this one just doesn't fully engross me. It never has. I don't know at this point. This may be my third time watching it all the way through. It's certainly the first time in a while. I like the film. Like I said, I do not dispute its importance. It is definitely a film that I am glad to revisit now and then. And actually, this month, I did something I have very rarely done, but I do occasionally. I know some members of this group work hard to get everything that we cover. I don't try as hard, but I do like to pick them up. And this month, I just straight up went ahead and I got the Universal Legacy collection of this one and the one for the Mummy. I already had the one Invisible Man. I already have the one for the Mummy. And if you ever seen those Universal Legacy collections, they're kind of awesome. They have so much stuff in those collections. Yeah. And they look cool too.
It's on my wish list.
I think if you don't have the big set, which I was unlucky enough not to get the big set, but getting those individuals, to me, it's one of the best things because it's a great value for your buck. All the movies you get for that price, and the fact of having all of those classics in your collection.
Right.
I mean,
especially with the
newer sets come with the Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Yeah, exactly.
This one, this one comes with I think it's 5 films, and one of them is Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, and the Invisible Man one does have Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man, so that was a nice bonus for me. I liked that. And then to top off the order, I went ahead and ordered the 3, the recent Mummy, the Brendan Fraser one we'll be covering at the end of the month. So that trilogy. Although it didn't have Scorpion King on it, so I was a little surprised about that.
Well, it has its own collection.
It's more an action adventure film than a horror film.
Right. Yeah, those are more adventure films. This is true. This is more of an old school horror. But yeah, overall, it's a fun group of movies, and I don't know. It's again, I like my vampire stories, and I like the story of Dracula. And Lugosi does do a great job with the role, and it's iconic. It's just not my favorite. So we'll see if I have a lot to say tonight. But I'm definitely happy to see it again.
Okay. Let's see. Moving on to Dustin. First time watch. And what is your?
Well, I actually saw this for the first time at the start of 2021. So I had been trying to do what I'm doing now, where I watch one movie a day for Letterboxd. And I actually started with the Universal Monsters in 2021. And, well, it might have been 2022. It's hard to remember at this point. And I was going strong. I made it through the collection, and then just stuff started happening, and I stopped. But I'm holding strong this year. Anyway, so I saw it for the first time a few years ago, having known pretty much everything. I had seen Christopher Lee's Dracula. I'd seen Gary Oldman Dracula, which I think is the best Dracula. Well, as a movie, I think the Bram Stoker's Dracula movie is the best Dracula movie. what was that? But anyway, so this one, you can see the origin of a lot of different things from a lot of different movies in this, along with a bunch of stereotypes. So it's sort of difficult to watch just because I feel like I already know everything. That was the problem I had with Psycho and The Exorcist when I first saw those. However, unlike both of those, I ended up enjoying this anyway. Like I thought the story was fairly quick. Like it moved along, plot point to plot point, and what felt sort of like rapid succession. Like they didn't have time for filler, or like didn't know how to do filler, more likely. Because I started this while I was working on a project, so I had it on mostly in the background since I've seen it at least two or three times since then to get all the commentary tracks and stuff. And it was pretty much over before I knew it, so it doesn't really feel slow. Maybe if you're doing nothing but sitting and watching it, it would feel slow. But I felt the pace was fine. Like Bela Lugosi is a very unique Dracula, and what if you ask, I think most people to picture Dracula, they will picture Bela Lugosi, even if they haven't seen it. Like somehow his image is everywhere.
Oh yeah,
at all times. So it's still a really relevant piece of art, and as a movie, it works very well too. I mean, I wouldn't say it's spectacular, but it's still pretty great. You could definitely do worse. I think other Universal monsters are a little bit better, but he's one of the top 5, I think, out of those. Well, I guess there are only 8. So let's see: Creature, Bride of Frankenstein, Invisible Man. I guess Dracula would go there. Okay, so top 4. At least for me. But yeah, I liked it. I'm happy. I got an excuse to break it out off the shelf, and happy to be here.
Okay. Well, part of the reason this one probably seems to move along so quick is, there's so many different Draculas out there now. Then they've changed the characters have changed, and the length of the movie has changed, and so yes, you look at Bela Lugosi being the original Dracula, but this is nothing like the the 90s, the big one, the Bram Stoker's Dracula. They came out,
Yeah, that one was a lot more elaborate. That one was more of a spectacle, and I feel like Dracula had better motivations than that.
But you see what I mean?
Yeah,
I do see what you mean.
and if you look at Nosferatu, I believe it's actually not Mina that is the love of the main guy's life in there. It's actually, if I remember correctly, it's her friend's name that is in the original Nosferatu. And
right.
As adaptations change, Dr. Seward, who in this Dracula is, I believe, one of the girls' fathers.
He's Mina's
father.
Yeah, Mina's father in here. Whereas in Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Francis Coppola, he's actually a suitor. It varies. And Renfield, sometimes his role has changed too.
Yeah, Renfield is different in this one. Like Renfield isn't locked up like he is more of an active player in the story. Whereas in the other Draculas I've seen, Renfield is already in the sanitarium, long before Dracula arrived in London.
Oh yeah, but
this one kind of condenses the story.
Yeah,
because if I'm remembering correctly, I believe Renfield was the one who went to Transylvania prior to Jonathan Harker going.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, Harker
And-
did the parts. Yeah.
And the way the story goes is that Renfield just kind of goes mad, and then Jonathan Harker, through his journals, says that he has to go and like take up like where he left off,
Yeah.
and he
Yes.
basically becomes Dracula's like. I would call him at that point in time a real estate like a real estate
Broker.
person. Yeah, and and it's Harker that actually procures the abbey
Yes.
for him back in the mainland. So,
And he and Mina are engaged.
Yep, like I said, the versions differ over the years and everything, and that's what, and each one, the movie ends up getting longer, and there's more changes, and there's more this, and there's more that.
Well, the original novel is pretty beefy. And again, I think the play probably streamlined it quite a bit, which is why the
Right,
movie
it
was
did.
able to be streamlined.
I did. I have read the book, well, to an extent. So, well, full disclosure. So I'm going to be sharing this with my professor from a class I had in undergrad called The Gothic Novel, where we read and discussed vampire novels, and is honestly one of the most fun classes I've ever taken, ever. It was great. But I didn't know if I was going to be able to get into the class or not. So I was taking something else and then hoping somebody would drop Gothic Novel. And I think it was about a week and a half in, somebody did drop. This was only like a 4-week course, so it was like, let's jump in. And the guy was like, "Oh, are you sure you can? We're pretty far into Dracula. Are you sure you can catch up?" It's like, "Yeah, I'm a fast reader. I can do it." And I am a fast reader. But we were basically having the test on. I basically had to read the whole of Dracula in like a day and a half, and it was like, I can't do this. So I basically just read from where everybody else was in the story and missed like the first 2/3 of the book.
Well, if you'd have the one that I have the annotated one, which is a hardcover, and it's huge.
I had one that I liberated from somebody else.
Well, you know what I mean. That one's a whole lot bigger than just the regular one.
Well, I do have that one now, and it is quite thick. Yeah. So I noticed I had trouble with it in a similar way I have trouble with Lovecraft sometimes, where the language is, I guess, harder to navigate because it's in like that turn of the century English.
it's definitely a wordy, a wordy language. That's for sure.
Well, it's more like with something written like recently, it'll take me maybe 2 minutes to read a page. With something like that, it'll take me more like 3 or 4, because I have to kind of modulate. It's like, what is that term? Like, especially with Lovecraft, I was doing a lot of like, I do not know this vocabulary word. I always know vocabulary words. That's new. I have to look this up. So I mean, the book is fine, although I need to revisit it someday, but it's probably never going to happen because there's so much to do all the time.
Okay. Well, moving on to Dave. Is this your first time? And what are your thoughts?
Oh no. I can't say exactly when I first saw this particular adaptation of Dracula, but I can say that the Universal monsters were quite vivid in my mind, and I used to have like a bunch of them on like VHS, like when I had my VHS collection. But Dracula is a a favorite of the Universal monster films. It's just that adaptations change over time, and when I think of Dracula, I do think of Bela Lugosi, but I also think of Christopher Lee, because I not only was subjected to Universal monsters, I was also subjected to Hammer Films monsters too, and you got different adaptations like Frank Langella has Dracula later on, and
That's actually one of my favorites. Is that one?
I need to get that Shot Factor disc sometime. Like, I thought I had it, but I looked around and I don't seem to.
but I enjoy the atmosphere of this film. I mean, what other film can you have armadillos and possums in the same?
Oh, so yeah, those armadillos.
In Europe, where they're not supposed to be.
And I also love the tracking that this film does when it comes to the coffin scenes. When it pans in, I mean, it does better on the entrance of Dracula in the Spanish version of Dracula, but I really do love that panoramic zoom in or zoom out, I think it is, because they actually zoom out like when they first introduced Dracula at that original like place when Renfield comes, and I know I enjoy
his name. He was German. He was the one that was doing the filming, and they chose him for a reason on this.
But I believe that I've always enjoyed the part where there's no one driving the carriage, so something about that look in black and white is just spooky and eerie. Not that it's scary, but it's just got.
I do feel the need to comment that with the bat like leading the horses, I had kind of forgotten just how beginning of time a lot of the effects were, and I think I actually when I first saw this movie, I didn't do it this time, but the first time I saw this movie, we got to that, I was like, yeah, this looks pretty good. This is holding up pretty well. And we got to that scene, and I think I actually said out loud, "Oh, that's unfortunate," at that bat. And
it does look warning
how convincing it was.
And the bat makes multiple appearances throughout the film.
Yeah.
Well, they said in the afterward thing that I was watching that when they were trying to get the bat coming in her window, they were trying to get the bat to swing in the window, and it actually broke off of its line.
Yeah, because evidently it was on fishing line.
Yeah, somebody told a story about how it happened in the stage play, and they had to like somehow play it off, and the way they did it made people think, "Wait, are there two Draculas?"
Yeah, because they had to make Dracula appear at that moment, and the audience was wondering, okay, why is he appearing now? But yeah, I enjoy this film, and I recognize that it has a place in cinematic history, and there are a lot of films that have their appearance and their look based off of this film. So yeah, but Brandon, I believe that you're like the only one who hasn't gone yet. So why don't you? Was this a first time watch for you?
No. This is my probably third or fourth. I know I cannot tell you if I saw it on its own all the way through. until I was well into adulthood, but I know that I've seen snatches of it throughout popular media for a long time. Things like Muppet Babies or stuff like that growing up. So I was very familiar with the image, and Bela Lugosi definitely affected a lot how people played Dracula going forward. And that look is the iconic one. I will still say the OG Dracula is Nosferatu, because they may not say it's Dracula, but we all know it's Dracula. But the one that everybody caught on to, I think, was this one because, well, there is a charm that Bela Lugosi does have in the role and that he brings to the role. Watching it this time, I admit I was, I am, I guess the thing I think of the most is the kind of just abrupt end to the film. That's just like, oh my gosh, it just ended like that? Okay.
You go upstairs, I've got him, and that's it.
Yeah, well, you go upstairs. I'll wait right here. I gotta do something else. Done. But and then again, Nosferatu also ended pretty abruptly with him being exposed to sunlight and then just disappearing. Poof. Okay, done. So
Got him.
it's so I guess it's not something new, and I did like that as an early film. It looked really good. I mean, the transfer on it, even on the DVD currently, is really nice and really crisp looking. So it just shows that the quality of how they filmed it back then for it to be able to be restored to that level. Still very good. I would say not my favorite vampire movie of all time, but definitely a good one and a decent telling of the story. I don't think it's any slower than any other direct telling of the Dracula story, because it's got a lot of slow parts to it. That novel's got a lot of slow parts to it. I do remember reading it many years ago, and I remember falling asleep many, many times throughout the reading because I do not read fast. So as the 6 or 7 months it took to read it went through, it was very slow, very falling asleep a lot reading. But yeah, very entertaining, very iconic. I think that anybody who's a collector or a movie buff should be watching this, because even if the movie itself is not as spectacular these days, I can say that we wouldn't have a lot of modern horror movies that we all enjoy without this pioneering a lot of the stuff going forward.
Right. They said on the thing that we watched that they were taking a chance doing this. And more than one person had told the director not to do this movie. They didn't think it was going to get anywhere, So they took a big chance doing it.
And this was like, when was it that the code came into play? It wasn't that far. It was in the 30s that the code came.
I want to say 36 or 37.
So yeah, this is pre-code, and so if you look at a lot of movies, and I've seen a lot of movies that took place before that code happened, people think of old movies as almost puritanical in their thing, but that was due to the code. Because movies prior to that, they really did take chances, and they pushed the envelope in ways that you would never believe. And this one did that a little bit, but not nearly as much as it could have. But that's all I've got to say about that.
Okay, well, it was definitely not the first time for me. I remember being a kid watching this. We had Shock Theater here at the time, and I remember, I would be at my great grandparents' house, and I knew that they were gonna have the spooky movies on late at night. Okay, they put me to bed. Okay, I wait for them to go to bed. Okay, I hear my great grandpa snoring. Okay, time to get up. Go out to the living room and put on spooky movie. So I remember seeing it my first time like that, and yeah, they sure have cleaned it up quite a bit because I still remember how grainy and everything it looked, even though I was a kid, compared to how it looks now, you know. And where I wasn't like shocked and totally frightened out of my wits watching it, you know, it was still scary, at the time. And but it was, even as a kid, I felt it was like not just totally scary. It was like, wow, okay, what's that? Oh, that's a vampire. Oh, okay. You know. So, because by that time I had watched other, of course, monster movies late at night. But okay, well, does anybody else have anything to say before we get on with it? No. Okay, so, like I said at the beginning, Renfield goes to Transylvania to um get Count Dracula's signature for buying Carfax Abbey. When he gets there on the first stagecoach, he's telling them that he's going there, and they're like, "No, you don't want to go there." When he gets off the coach, he says, "Oh, don't take my bag off because I'm going to. I have a coach to meet at Borgo Pass." You know, "Oh, you don't want to go there," and he tells them Count Dracula, "No, you don't want that," and he goes anyways, even though they're telling him not to go. And then, like David said, he meets up with the other coach and realizes when he looks out the window that he doesn't have a driver. And then he gets there and um, walks in and he meets Count Dracula. So, what do you think of that? What does everybody think of that first scene when you see Dracula standing on the stairs and all the cobwebs and Renfield's just looking around at this place? What are your first thoughts?
Oh, like I said, it's definitely some iconic moments in there, especially when Dracula comes down the stairs. But yeah, just that first look that Renfield gets is he's kind of like, "Whoa, what's going on here?"
Kind of
But
like, what did I get myself into?
I I did want to also mention real quick before we go completely by that first scene with the villagers. That really sets the template for a lot of these films too, I think. And I feel that was one of the scenes I felt like maybe they were trying to copy some of the look of Nosferatu because it really looked very similar to the set where parts of that film was. Yeah, I don't know if anyone else felt that, but I kind of did. Um, and then, like I said, when he's talking to the innkeeper, uh, I had to I kind of jokingly put up that quote from Futurama, but I'm like, I know they were directly referencing that scene.
I choose to believe what I was programmed to believe.
Yes, exactly. Or what was Bender? Is like, pardon me, my good simpleton, or whatever. It's like, yes, they were a bunch of good simpletons. That's how they could have been named in the credits.
Okay, anybody else?
I enjoy that beginning entrance with all the cobwebs at the castle and all that jazz. I mean, those were a lot of cobwebs to be in front of. Like Dracula had to actually go behind like a curtain of cobwebs, and Renfield was looking at it like, "What do you expect me to like go behind all that shit?" So
And
I
then
do.
how about when he's going up the stairs and he stops and he says,
Yeah, the spider going up the wall, and and I think he makes a remark to the spider, has to eat. It's in the blood, or something like that.
The blood is the life.
Yeah,
But also, that's what he makes the reference to the children. What sweet music they make.
actually, it's in here. It's what music they make. In Bram Stoker's, it's what sweet music they make.
But we know
So
where it came from because it's like in every Dracula movie.
yeah,
Okay, so, well, moving on. Renfield is talking to him. He's got the papers. He's gonna sit down and have something to eat or whatever. And Dracula goes and brings him some wine. And he pours him the wine and he tells him this is very good wine. And he asks him if he's gonna have some. He goes, I don't drink
Drink
wine.
wine.
And then as Renfield's going through the papers, we get the first taste of what Dracula really is, because he cuts his finger on the paper, and right away you see that camera panning to him and to Dracula noticing, and he's noticing the blood, and Renfield's, and he's getting closer and closer, and then the cross falls down and we see him back away. And Renfield's like, oh, it's nothing. It's just a paper cut. And he starts sucking on his finger and oblivious to what almost happened. So, because that was like our first taste of seeing him trying, oh, blood, gimme. But then we realized that the wine was drugged, and Dracula's 3 wives show up, and Dracula shows up, and they disappear real quick. And
yeah, they back away after. There is a moment of silence where supposedly they're supposed to say something, but they really don't in this adaptation.
no, and he in this one he doesn't make any mention of he's mine, which they are in other adaptations. And we see Dracula being bent down by Renfield, and well, the next thing we know, they're on the ship. Because this one does, it may be slow, but yet it moves pretty fast through the actual novel.
Well, and I believe it's a different name for the ship, because in Nosferatu it's called Demeter. It's also called Demeter in
Other
Brahms.
adaptations.
Yeah, in other adaptations, but in this one I believe it's called the Verna.
No, it's the Vesta.
The Vesta. There we go. Yeah.
Anybody have anything to say so far?
I'm trying to think, because I thought that I guess they probably do change the name of it in each movie. Because I kept trying to be like, no, wait, that sounds right, and I think it actually has a. Can somebody check if the ship has a different name in each Dracula adaptation? Because I think that might be a thing. Like, it might be different in each one.
I know that in Nosferatu it was Demeter, and the thing that is supposed to happen is that the rats actually, like, as soon as the ship docks, the rats like come through the town, and they're kind of what helped kill all the shipmates on board. It happens in this one and the Francis Coppola
Oh.
version, but it doesn't happen in here.
I do like how you've got like I do like that you got Dracula, and of course you have Renfield in this one on the ship with him. I like the idea that you've got Dracula going up and slaughtering everybody to the point where they've got the captain tied to the wheel of a ship at the end, and then of course the only supposed survivor being Renfield. I actually like that way of doing it because nobody would doubt the dude had gone insane from the whole process, and I mean, all those people dying, and then him being basically on his own on the ship the whole time.
Well, Renfield was the first vampire sub, if you think about it.
On that. I'm on. On that political talk show I listened to, they used the term Renfield for like minions, so still quite around. Like it's like a synonymous term for just like a lackey. I just thought that was fun.
I'd say Renfield was more of a slave than he was a sub. I don't think he had any rights.
Well,
Dracula was definitely a dom.
he
Dracula was
definitely
definitely dumb.
enjoyed. He definitely enjoyed whatever Dracula would like throw to him. I imagine more like a lapdog than anything else.
Like I said, a
His-
slave.
His laugh was just so creepy. Renfield's laugh.
It's definitely one of my favorite renditions of Renfield. I really like how this actor plays it.
Yeah.
Because he plays it very straight in the beginning, and you get to see him kind of prim and proper and up front, but then you see how he unraveled there, and I like that. I actually liked it better than the Bram Stoker's Dracula version of Renfield.
And he actually became a little bit more vampiric as he went along, because there was a moment where he was like really creepy looking, crawling towards the maid, like later on, as if he were to like bite her himself. But
yeah, he was really good. Of course, there are a lot of good Renfields out there. I'm sure that we'll enjoy the Nicolas Cage movie. But I mean, shoot, even in Sharkula, Kyle
Looking
played
forward to Renfield.
and he did an excellent job with that, expressing that creepy nature of the character. So, or even if you go to a movie like Manos and the Hands of Fate, Torgo was essentially Renfield in that.
They use that Torgo term as well. Like they use Renfield and Torgo like interchangeably. And
Well, Torgo is definitely Renfield in a lot of ways, and he does a good job of it, even though the guy who played him was high a lot of the time.
Okay, just a little tidbit forgot to mention earlier. The original Broadway production of Dracula, starring Bella, appeared at the Fulton Theater on October 5th, 1927. And it ran for 261 performances. So, I guess he really had Dracula down, hey?
Like been doing it for a while.
Okay, so, yes, the ship has crashed. Nobody's alive. They find Renfield. And now the boxes are unloaded in Carfax Abbey. Renfield's put into a loony bin, Dr. Seward's. And then we see Dracula basically in all his properness, basically. The way he just walks down the streets, and he looks just so proper, and just the way he holds himself, and he walks up to the girl with the flowers, and well, she's not selling flowers anymore, but but then he makes his way to a live um, orchestra performance that was going on, and that's where he ends up meeting Dr. Seward and his daughter Mina, and he meets Jonathan Harker, and he meets the friend of Mina's, Lucy, and he becomes well, I think he was attracted to Mina, but at this moment he's more attracted to Lucy. And like you said,
Lucy's less of a slut in this one.
Oh yeah, she's not as much of one in this one, no. Although when the girls get back to the house, she is talking about how much she liked him. I'm talking about what it would be like to be Miss Lucy Dracula, you know?
Oh, Miss Countess, I'll leave you to yourself. I'll leave you alone.
Yes. And little do they know that he is actually outside, and that's when he comes and visits Lucy, and that's the first time we get to really see the bat portrayed. And well, because of the time, I guess you have to say they did a good job, I guess, on the bat for the time.
Which is funny. Doesn't actually, I can't remember. Did they ever have him transform into a bat in the original movie? The original book, because I know that vampires aren't normally gifted with that form. It's kind of weird.
Well, I do believe he does turn into a bat once or twice.
I know he turns into, I think, a
I know he's a
wolf.
wolf.
Dracula is specially. He's the one that has all these powers and shit. That's why he's like the Prince of Darkness. He's above and beyond other vampires. His powers are beyond them.
Well, we know that this particular movie is actually based more on the play than it's actually based on the book. But I do believe in the book he is able to transform himself even in the book. So, but yes,
yeah. For the most part, he's portrayed as being able to portray into a wolf in later adaptations. Technically, he supposedly turns into a wolf, but you only hear them say, "Hey, there's a dog running away." You mean a wolf?
Moors, just out of frame.
You don't get to see him as the dog at all, or the wolf at all. You just get to see this dangling, swinging bat. So,
Actually, if I was going with special effects with it, I would say, oddly, I would consider Nosferatu to actually be more forward as far as special effects in this one, because Nosferatu really pushed the boundary. This one pushed the boundaries, but nowhere near as much as that one did. But we're talking, what, 1918 was Nosferatu? Was that
1922?
1922? Never mind. I'm thinking different way. I was thinking, no, that's not true either. Because we cover...
There was a Lost film that was before Nosferatu that I really wish that we would have been able to see. It was a Hungarian production called Dracula's Breath, was it?
Dracula's Death or something.
But yeah, I was able to actually procure the manuscript for Tammy not too recently, because they really cool. Believe it was called Dracula's Breath or Dracula's Death. Something like that.
Yeah, I saw that. I heard that mentioned in the extras that I was able to watch.
So many good films from that era. Or I mean, there were a lot of things that had the dawning horror type. Nosferatu definitely was one of the more original vampire horrors. I mean, shoot, even if you go for L'Inferno, that was 1912, and it was filmed originally and finished in 1910. So that's it goes back a good ways.
Okay, so Miss Lucy ends up dying from they don't know why at the time, because she you
And
see
Lucy's death happens really fast.
right that he's you see her in like a bunch of doctors overlooking, and they're talking about that she had just had a transfusion 4 hours before, but where's the blood? There's, you know, so I believe at this time is when Seward calls his good friend Van Helsing in on the matter, because Lucy isn't the only one in town.
Well,
To the
and the guy who's playing Van Helsing, he's also the other actor that is from the original stage play. So that's kind of a cool thing to notice.
correct, but they call him in because Lucy isn't the only one that has died from these mysterious puncture wounds on the neck, and not and that's when he starts doing all his research and everything, and comes up with the idea that there's a vampire, which nobody really wants to believe that, you know. But we all know that Dracula has already been introduced to the family when he was at the symphony, but then he comes to the house and is reintroduced to everybody.
And they don't really know who he is yet, so it's I don't know, it's an interesting dynamic in this one where they're not like in the Gary Oldman one. He does reveal himself like to Mina, but to nobody else really. Whereas here, he's just directly interacting with like all of his enemies right away.
Oh yeah, and they know he's the vampire like right away too, which is very interesting. It's I actually find it interesting, almost refreshing in a way, even though this is the one that predates a lot of those. I love Dracula just strutting down the street with his cane, sees some woman selling flowers, basically outright gangster. I love that. It's just
I like that too. The way he was just strutting down there, just so he looked kind of like powerful.
Yeah, they don't really romanticize Dracula at all in this adaptation. He's more stalker than he is romantic.
Fucking men for that. Fucking men. Dracula should not be fucking romanticized. Dracula's not, this was the perfect Dracula, and Bram Stoker's fucked it up. But, Frank Coppola.
He needed more sparkles. He should have sparkled in the sun.
No.
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 I'd actually preferred Ford Coppola's version to the sparkling, but yeah.
Well, in the actual novel, he is thought of more as a gross type of a character. He is thought of more or less like the Nosferatu character than he is of Bela Lugosi's character. Bela Lugosi's character of Dracula has shined him up quite a bit and made him a lot different than actually the book itself. He is, because he is portrayed to be monstrous in the book.
I blame Bela Lugosi's portrayal for all those future sexualizations of Dracula and vampires, because it was really the first of having this kind of almost dashing character, and he handled it very well in that way. Not quite. He's not somebody that would break through on break out in sparkles, but he definitely was much more of a romantic lead than, say, Nosferatu.
Well, yeah, correct. But okay, where were we?
Though I'm sure there are people that do sexualize the Nosferatu version.
As much as I like my
Oh,
vampires,
baby,
I
and those
don't.
big teeth.
No.
Well, maybe they like the Klaus Kinski version of Nosferatu.
But
The
anyways,
master in Salem's Lot.
Van Helsing becomes very well aware of who he is when he, I believe it is Jonathan, goes to get his cigar. Jonathan or Dr. Seward, one of them goes to get his cigar, and he opens up that box, and he just happens to be looking that way and notices there's no reflection in that mirror. So he has to go closer, and he realizes there is no reflection in that mirror as he's watching things unfold in the room. And that's when he does confront him, and yes, we see him have a little bit of an anger issue at the moment. The way he bats that box away, which basically stuns everybody because they don't understand, you know. And after he leaves, then and he even says Van Helsing will explain, and he does, but nobody still wants to believe.
Good old Wolves Bay.
So I believe it's the next day that we find out that Mina has been visited because she thought it was a dream. And she's explaining her dream to Jonathan, and Seward and Van Helsing are listening. And Van Helsing finally gets her to remove her scarf so he can see her neck. And that's when they decide they have to take measures to protect her. And they also have brought in Renfield to talk with him because he keeps getting out at night. And they don't know where he goes. So they brought him in to talk to him. And when he is confronted with the wolfsbane, he has a reaction to it. So that is when Van Helsing also realizes that, okay, there's a connection with him. And besides that, Renfield keeps telling everybody to take Mina away. He's trying to watch out for her, but nobody listens either. Anybody have anything to add up to this point?
Well, it just moves along so quick, and without much exposition or extra stuff in the scenes. I mean, there's not necessarily a whole lot to comment on, although the initial little thing Van Helsing does where he's like, hey, could you come take a look at this? And Dracula's like, sure. Ah, mirror. Like that was kind of funny in retrospect.
Oh yeah, that part was actually very good, and that's where we have that he I believe, turned into the wolf.
Yeah, that's where like he's like, excuse me, I must go. And then like a couple minutes later, somebody's looking out into the yard off camera. It's like, there's a big there's some sort of creature on the lawn. It's like, yeah, I'm sure there is.
Well, Van Helsing totally believes it because he knows that he can turn. Nobody else does, but
Well, I mean, that's the characters are seeing the thing, but I'm just like, being movie savvy, going, it's like, yeah, they didn't know how to show that. Okay. So that was a joke for me. Yeah.
okay.
But yeah, it's a good scene, and as slow as it can feel, if you're just like sitting like alone in the dark, like watching this, it does move very quickly.
Right. A lot of things that we're used to seeing in other versions are not in this version. Anybody else have anything to add? Okay. So, everybody's trying to protect Mina. They put the wolfsbane everywhere. They're trying to watch over her. But
Which is interesting that they use wolf's bane instead of garlic.
It seems like early on in like vampire and werewolf mythologies, there was a lot of overlap.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, there's even some adaptations where silver bullets kill vampires too. So
Yeah.
But the cross will always work, right?
against a vampire, well, not unless they're Jewish.
Or atheist.
Or pagan, but I was referring to the movie. Oh, you got the wrong vampire. I'm Jewish.
Yeah, although I remember in Dracula 2000, they tried to use one of the characters tried to use a cross on a vampire, and the vampire tells him that reminds him that he's an atheist.
A few days ago, I saw Sundown, the Vampire in Retreat, if anybody knows about that.
Oh, that one's funny.
And and in that one, there was a whole storyline of vampires trying to redeem themselves, evil vampires that wanted to stay evil. And the finale is there's a giant cross at the end, and the side of the cross kills the bad vampires but spares the good vampires. And I thought that was a cool twist on that trope that I don't think you ever really get in anything else.
That's interesting because, like, even in the movie The Exorcist, if he doesn't believe in the cross, it's not going to work. It's not going to do anything. And the same here. If he doesn't really believe in that cross when they're showing it, it doesn't work either.
Yeah.
That seems
They do that in Sound Law as well.
That seems to be a thing. If you want to use the cross for something, you better believe in it, or it isn't gonna work.
And be able to back that belief in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then
I do like the moment where Dracula tries to take and control Van Helsing. And at first he starts to step towards him, and then he's like steps backwards a couple of steps. He's like, "You got a strong will," So.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think he was
That
gonna
was
try
a
to like
very
break his neck or
unique
something
scene.
if he got close enough.
I do like that they actually, that I would actually at the point was rooting for Van Helsing to resist it. And I like that the movie got you to start rooting for him to do it. So when he did it, it felt like a great accomplishment. And it was a pretty cool scene.
Yeah, I felt that same way too. That you're sitting there going, "Don't go to him. Really, don't go to him."
Yeah, I'm sitting there thinking, like, what is it? His glasses to help him or something? Like, yeah. And then of course Dracula's like, your will is strong. I'm like, all right, it's his will. I was thinking maybe the glasses help a little bit, help protect his natural eyes from Dracula's hypnosis.
Well, with seeing so many different versions over the years, sometimes, like when I rewatched this last night, I actually for a moment did forget about that scene, that particular scene, because I've seen so many different versions over the years, and you lose track of some of these. And then you see it again, like I did last night. And it's like, oh
Yeah,
yeah, that was cool. Oh yeah.
it's funny how it's like this kind of had a little tit for tat, talking back and forth, like fight, it wasn't like any like action packed fight, but it was still an interesting battle of the wills, basically. You don't physically see a lot, but you can tell that Dracula's really trying to get him to hypnotize him and get him to do his bidding, and he's really resisting it, and they did a great job showing that that they were having a battle of wills. They weren't having your typical action packed fight, but it was still a nice battle of the wills, and it was something that a lost art, that we'll probably never get back. So it's definitely great to see.
One thing I found interesting too about this one is you don't ever actually see him bite anybody. You see him going to, but you don't actually see him. You don't actually even see the teeth that that we're used to in other Dracula movies.
Or even the bite marks.
No, which I think when they did this, I think that was really neat because it it makes the audience think about it or wonder or.
Yeah, you sound like my mother when she's talking about Dark Shadows. Because that was my biggest complaint about Dark Shadows. You never see nothing. You never see no biting or anything. I don't know. Like I said, in my mind, this Dracula, you did see all that. Like I said, I just think I got it confused, or but in my head, Dracula, you saw the biting, you saw the stuff, and when I saw it again now as an adult, I'm like, oh crap, none of that's in here. like I
But you're
know it was there. Yeah,
if it's
yeah,
done right, which it was, you're supposed to have it in your mind.
yeah. Well, yeah, because I thought I could have sworn it was in the movie.
At this time, that worked really good without showing it. Things like this worked good without actually showing the gore, without showing the stuff. That was a really good way of getting the audience in on these movies, is without actually shocking them and showing them. Let their mind figure it out.
Well, and Universal definitely wanted you to know that this was a Universal picture, because at the end of the movie, you actually see it says it. This is a Universal picture in like big fucking letters.
Okay, well, we're not that far yet.
I know.
So I think we're up to about where Amina is talking with Jonathan, and she is, you know, she's all in this pretty gown, and they're talking, and he's saying how pretty she looks and how full of life, and you can see in her eyes that there's more to it.
She's actually telling him to go away. To get away from me. In that moment, I believe.
That was
Because
that was an earlier moment when she's in
okay,
the
that was
gold.
an earlier moment.
Yeah, when she was in the golden gown, though, she is in his control, and you can see
Okay,
it in
yeah.
her eyes. and they're talking and everything. That's Van Helsing and Seward stay out of sight, and just as she is going to follow, well, first the bat comes, and Jonathan is trying to get rid of the bat, and she's talking. She's answering. Dracula is entering her mind, and she's answering. And Jonathan goes, "What did you say?" Oh, I didn't say anything. Yes, you did. You said I will. No, I didn't. She doesn't
Yeah, she was
realize that
answering.
she's.
Yeah, she was answering out loud, but not in her head. But yeah, she doesn't even realize she was answering.
Well, plus a little bit before that, she had sat down with Jonathan, and you could tell she was looking at his neck like she wanted to like bite him. And at that moment, I was like, "Yes, dear, I'm hungry."
Well, yes, because Dracula is commanding her through her mind to do it. And just as she's about to, then we see Seward and Van Helsing jump onto the scene and put the cross in front of her. She freaks out. Jonathan freaks out because he doesn't know why she's freaking out. And then yes, she's again telling him to leave her alone, and um everything. And they realize that they need to find Dracula's coffin. Any thoughts up to this point?
They're pretty they're pretty subtle with like showing Mina being mind controlled by Dracula, which is a nice direction to take it for this. Like really, like this movie feels really stripped down compared to all the other Draculas, but all those other Draculas are trying to outdo this Dracula. So a lot of I guess what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of the effect depends on like how the actors are able to portray, like, oh, I'm being hypnotized, or oh, I'm talking to someone in my mind. And she does a good job of selling that, I think.
Yeah, nobody could like out act people in this movie, so they had to use special effects and stuff to try to do better. I mean, I like the other versions, but it's just this is the classic for a reason, I mean, Bela Lugosi's the awesome Dracula, but everyone else is good too. I mean, everyone else gets a little overshadowed because of him, of his greatness. Playing Dracula, but everyone did a great friggin' job in this.
Wasn't the guy that played Renfield? He was Fry. Was his name Dwight Fry? I thought he.
Oh yes, Dwight Fry.
I thought he did an awesome job of Renfield. I mean,
Oh yeah, so good he apparently got typecast in the role.
Third of more powerful beings.
well, they had a lot to say about him in that behind the scenes thing too, about different roles that he's played, and he's always put his all into it and everything, and that But I think it was that he did a very good job in this. So now I guess we're up to the point where Dracula comes and gets her, and they go to Carfax, and
Carfax Abbey. Apparently is like not just a ruin as it is in every other Dracula, but like a castle. Why is that in London? But oh well.
Well, they did actually use ruins in the shooting of it. They actually used the ruins. So they said that in the behind the scenes thing, that there actually were the ruins there.
Oh. Well, to me, it looked like a much larger, older structure than you would have expected for what Carfax Abbey would be.
Well, I think from they may not have used the actual inside, but the outside part was an actual ruin.
Okay.
So
'Cause the interior looked too nice to me, I guess, is what I'm trying to say poorly.
all I know is I would not have liked to be on that staircase, man.
Yeah, it looks dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, not doesn't look fun.
Yeah, I didn't see any handrails.
Yeah, even with handrails, it's
Yeah.
But yeah, without them,
Yeah, it definitely wasn't set up for handicapped people.
Handicapped, it wasn't set up for non-handicapped either, you know. But anyways,
It wasn't set up
super.
for old people.
They all go with Carfax looking to find Dracula and Mina, and then they're going to stab Dracula through the heart and kill him. So, which Van Helsing and Jonathan do finally come across Dracula's coffin, but Mina is not in. But Jonathan manages to find something to give Van Helsing to drive the stake through Dracula's heart, which you don't get to see that either. You just get to hear him. And
Camera depths in this, yeah.
then Jonathan finds Mina, and she at first is feeling all the pain of Dracula being killed, and then, well, she is no longer a vampire now that he has been killed. And that basically sums it up.
Tidy conclusion.
I gotta say, that's probably my biggest gripe with the film is how abruptly it ends.
it's
Where Van Helsing's like, I'm gonna hang out here for a little while. Okay, we're gonna go out.
it's so anticlimactic.
Oh, so yeah, they would show Dracula getting a stake through his heart.
One thing that I understand,
Yeah.
they said I saw it.
They should have showed him come back.
One thing I saw about this was that supposedly there was a stinger at the end, and I think, as I understand it, the camera would have returned to Van Helsing, and he would have given the summation of the film. And apparently, they cut it, and that scene is no longer. Honestly, that would have also been a stupid way to end the movie, but it probably accounts for him saying, "Well, I'll just stick around for a minute," you know. But yeah, it was a weak ending.
Yeah, I do agree on that, but we can all kind of like say that now, but we do all agree that this is what started it.
It's also a product of. I feel like it's also just a product of the times. Its time.
Yeah.
Like they
But
couldn't control.
if this movie never would have taken off, could you imagine how different things could be as far as these type of movies?
It'd be a different world.
Well, I mean, in all fairness, a lot of movies ended abruptly like that. I've watched a number of Marx Brothers films that just end like that. What was it? I think we covered Monkey Business on this channel, and and that one ended really quick with him just saying, "He's like, I'm going to find that needle in a haystack," and then that was it.
Yeah, it's apparently hard to come up with an ending, even for a novel. So having to end a movie, it's hard to come up with the proper ending sometimes.
Nah, they should have just showed some mist and him starting to form back up and end it. So I would have done it.
I mean,
People,
making a great ending is an art form, and there are movies that stick the ending, and you're like, "Holy shit, that was a great ending." And then you have movies where you're like,
You get TV shows
but
of that too. You know, you get eight
was that?
seasons of you get 8 seasons of a great show, and then
Yeah.
the season finale, the show finale is just like, what the fuck? Yeah, I'm talking about you, Game of Thrones.
I haven't seen enough of that. I did watch the series finale of Seinfeld, which I know pissed off a lot of people for.
I actually liked it, but
I didn't mind it either, but it pissed off a lot
I
of
would say I
people.
thought it was a fitting end. I thought that was a fitting end.
yeah, I thought it was too.
But
They're all in court for being New Yorkers.
Sitting
basically.
in jail talking about all their fucking shit. Yeah.
but it's yeah, like I say, it's to me this one just it looks like there was a scene missing. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. It looks like an unfinished movie with the
Yeah.
way it ends.
Yeah, it looks
And
like they drew the curtain down, and you're just waiting for the curtain to come back up, and it's like, where is it?
Right.
Where's the rest of the movie?
I've been at shows, plays and concerts where people are like encore and they're expecting the encore and nothing happens.
Yeah. Oh, I've done that with concerts. I've been at concerts where people are like, encore, 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 and they didn't come back out. It's like, well, fuck you. Like, we're all screaming encore. Your bastards can't be bothered to come back out.
well, considering that this was taken from, a play, you know, the play might have basically ended like this, and they
Right.
just decided, well, we're just gonna
Still
end the
could have
movie
come
like
up with an ending. You didn't have to follow the play that much.
They followed it actually, from what I understand, quite a bit. So
Yeah, I just know they didn't follow the book. Even though I
anybody
haven't read
else
the
have
book.
anything to say before we get into like production?
Well, let's go for production.
Okay, well, what does everybody think about production?
Production was pretty damn good. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, the look. I mean, obviously it was made in 1931, so it's going to have the look of 1931. But you know, everything was good. I mean, the top hats and everything. I never really liked top hats, but you know, it gave you the sense of the time and stuff. You know.
Well, yeah, the way that Bella was dressed, he just
Yeah, he demanded presence. You know, he had a, you know, he was,
Mhm.
you know, he walked down and it's like, you know, people noticed him, you know, which is probably not the best thing for a vampire because, you know, you tend to like be in the shadows and stuff.
but he was in a totally new world, you know?
Yeah. He enjoyed it. Little Happy Meal on legs. Yeah, like I said, the production was spectacular. I mean, most of the even you know those special effects of what they had then wasn't that bad, except for probably that bat. That bat was probably the most. And then there was a spider in there too that you could tell was kind of fake. The spider and the bat was probably the only two scenes where I was just kind of like, yeah, that's really fake. But other than that, they did a pretty damn good job, I'd have to say, for you know what they had back then, you know. So
And for the time,
yeah,
people
that's what I'm saying.
probably really didn't think like we think now about.
Oh,
what
I
was
definitely. I mean,
back.
people were actually really afraid. Like they actually had nurses there, you know, to make sure people were okay and stuff because you know it was really terrifying to people. You know, I watched it and I was like, I love the movie, but really, you know, I don't see anything. I don't see much scary in anything the other people see scary, but especially this. You know, I really don't see anything scary. But I guess to people in 1930s, this was extremely scary. So
Well, they thought that Bela Lugosi was hot. Come on now. Of course, if they thought that he was, really good looking, like a
Everybody's
babe
got their
back
own
then.
trick.
Yeah, he was good looking
Of
and
course, they
charming.
might think
Full sense
they
of
would
good
think he's
looking to me, at least at times, is skeptical. At least during these times.
I mean, he looked charming, and he had a certain look about him. I mean, women say like tall, dark, and handsome, and that's him. Or
well. You
at
just
least
think about it.
to a degree. I mean,
Take the, you know,
and he's got those
take take any
piercing
scary
eyes.
movie from our time, and let somebody from 1931 look at it. You know,
They'd really have a heart attack.
right. So this was all new to people at this time. This type of a scary drama
Right.
type of creature. This was something that was, brand new.
Yeah.
Now,
You
one
know,
thing on the production, did anyone else notice in their viewing? There was sort of I wouldn't really call it a hiss, but like there was a sort of dull sound under everything in the version I watched, and I
They
don't know.
addressed that in the restoration extra that was bad audio on like all the other copies.
Okay, so even a restoration attempt would not create a perfect audio for this one. Unfortunately, that's the case with a lot of those older films. But I was just curious if it was just my copy or not. I had expected that those Universal Legacy ones would have the best possible audio.
I didn't really
well,
notice on the
actually,
Internet
I think
Archive.
Don't know.
I have the same. I have those ones that you're talking about, and I
Right.
also have the big box set one.
Nice.
And I do believe that the version that's in the big box set one actually was able to get rid of most of that.
Okay.
I do
That's just
remember.
strange.
I do remember hearing it in the ones that you're talking about. But when watching it last night, we watched the one that was in the box set.
Okay.
Maybe
Did
that's
you
where
watch
Internet
it on
Archive got it
Blu-ray or
from.
DVD?
Huh?
Did you watch it on Blu-ray or DVD?
Mom, my box set is DVD, isn't it, David?
Okay.
Yeah, it's DVD, but the newer box set DVDs are
Yeah.
basically the same transfers as the ones on the Blu-ray.
Okay.
And I have a Blu-ray player, so the
And
Blu-ray
the ones in those limited editions sets, those are actually pretty decent too. It's just my problem with those is that they're double-sided.
Yeah.
So
and they
over
tend to
time,
wear out easy.
over time, when you have a double-sided disc where you've got movies on one side, movies on the other,
Mhm.
like after like multiple planes, like one side will not work. Like
See, fortunately,
Oh,
most of mine don't get multiple planes.
I wonder if the Blu-ray is better for those that maybe they don't
It's-
double
it's
disc the
also-
Blu-ray.
It's also possible I was watching on my computer using one of those external drives, so it's possible that was part of the reason why But basically, long and short of it is, we still have a song, a movie from the first 3-4 years of Talkie Pictures that has decent audio, and that's saying something.
yeah, I think they were definitely able to clear up a lot of the nitrate that accumulated on the original films.
Nitrate hiss. That's what I was trying to think of. Yes.
But for sure, I enjoy the production. I love the gothic atmosphere. I mean, I love the cobwebs.
The visuals are solid.
Yeah, you could definitely tell that there was,
especially Miss Chandler.
yeah, you can definitely tell that there was some German expressionism, somewhat like in this, just a little bit, not
Like
much, but
Like I said,
enough.
I'm pretty sure some of these people had seen Nosferatu and probably cribbed some bits from it.
Oh yeah. So, I mean, I don't think they used as much shadows as they used in Nosferatu, but they definitely got out of
yeah.
their basic blueprints for some of the scenes.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I forgot where I saw it. There was something about when you saw the pictures of the ship, that was from another movie.
Yeah.
That was
I think they didn't really have the budget to do an ocean going scene, so they just borrowed something.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was
stock footage.
it was in something that I was reading off of IMDb
Right.
when you get into the
I
trivia
think
or
it
whatever
was
things.
I think it was just another Universal film that was in production at the time. I think.
Well, at least they weren't stealing.
No, they just borrowed it.
Well,
Right.
if it's Universal, then they own it. So.
Well, one thing I did see is that unless the copyrights are renewed, I think this film becomes public domain in 5 years, something like that.
I'm sure it's probably going to get renewed.
Okay, here, this scene where Dracula and Renfield are traveling to London by boat. The footage. Okay, come on, stop moving. Well,
Good luck,
stupid
phones.
now. I was just reading it. Okay, the footage shown is borrowed from a Universal silent film called The Stormbreaker from 1925.
All right.
Nice.
So it says that silent films were projected at a different frames per second speed from that later from those later adopted for sounds. So that's why there's the jerky movements and the quicker than normal action on those shots.
Actually worked. Worked well.
So I guess Dave, you're always really good at this. What about the music?
I think the music is just as iconic as Dracula. I mean, as iconic as Bela Lugosi is himself. And I know that there are those who know Nosferatu's music as well. As well. So to me, the music definitely went with the movie, and the music was in fact done by, let's see, music department. Well, the conductor and the music supervisor, who went uncredited, was Heinz Romheld. But yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't look like anyone was really fully credited as.
Well, it's like I said at the beginning, they did not commission a score for this. They used a couple pieces. They used a piece by Wagner, a piece by Schubert, and a piece by Tchaikovsky, and that was really mainly it. they didn't have any original music here, but like you said, I think the one by Tchaikovsky that is part from Swan Lake, I think that was the one they've used on multiple Universal monster pictures. So it might seem kind of iconic for that whole thing. But yeah, like I said, I'd read that they didn't want to sink a lot of resources into scoring the film because they didn't know if audiences would, quote unquote, buy music that didn't have an origin, which is weird, but you know. Yeah.
I know this doesn't have to do with the music, but the Borgo Pass was actually filmed in California.
Right. I think most of it was filmed in California, wasn't it? Let's see. I know.
Well, for filming locations, they have the Vasquez Rocks Natural Area Park,
Right.
and they put Borgo Pass right next to it. So I don't know what else was filmed there, but that's where the
Okay, Universal Studios. Yeah, Universal Studios. There's multiple locations for that. And apparently also a place called Agua Dulce, which is also in California. Which is why I was razzing on the wildlife in the film, because again, you're not going to find armadillos and possums in Europe. So you know it wasn't filmed there unless they specifically brought them in for those scenes. But well, okay, let me say this. You wouldn't have at the time. I think I've read that armadillos are becoming pests in certain areas around the world. So wouldn't surprise me if you find them in Spain now, but you know. But yeah, this one and the Borgo Pass, was that the part that they basically filmed it paintings on glass? I know
that was the castle.
That was the castle, right?
But the actual pass where you see them on the pass, that was in that place that you just in California. So
right. Which is kind of funny that they filmed it in the desert Southwest, and supposedly the actual Borgo Pass is like this lush woodland or something.
Yeah, I read that too. That's was that was part of like under the trivia or whatever thing for IMDb.
Right.
They were talking about what it actually is like. But it was supposed to look creepy and scary and desolate,
It kind of does.
So, all right. Anybody else have anything to say about production, music, anything else?
I think the production design was. I mean, the music. Yeah, it's just classical pieces, but the production design, though, I think is fantastic. Especially Castle Dracula. That was fantastic. Dracula's Tomb. Fantastic. Some fantastic production design and set pieces. Kind of really set the precedent for the Universal monsters.
Okay, well then I guess
like Gothic horror come to life.
Well then I guess we should go on and everybody pick your favorite scene, favorite actor, and just for the fun of it, since we are doing Universal pictures this month, what is your favorite one? So go ahead and start.
Who's starting?
Bro.
Okay.
Oh, I'm starting. Well, as far as favorite characters, favorite actor is Bela Lugosi in this one. I mean, like I said, everyone did a great job, but you just you can't overshadow Dracula. He was just he embodied the character so well that it's like when he was in a scene, he stole the scene no matter how good everyone else did. He just stole the scene. So he was just definitely the best there. And favorite scenes is very very difficult. I really love when they're coming up the stairs and he's talking about the spider webs, and the spider spins their webs to catch the fly, and talks about to get the blood, and blood is life. It's just it's kind of a creepy thing to say to the guy. I mean, just coming into this house, but it's really freaking cool. Um, I really like that, and throughout the whole movie, there's just some really great scenes. You know, just so I don't know. Everything is my favorite scene. Really, it's just absolutely great. I love it. And it's my favorite movies. Like I said, as much as I love Dracula, I just really appreciate how well done the Wolfman does. The original is still fucking phenomenal, but with the extra additions, I'd have to go with the remake of the Wolfman is probably my favorite. There's a ton I like, old and new, but I'd probably have to go with that as my favorite.
Okay, sounds good. How about you, Forrest?
All right. Favorite character? Oh, definitely Bela Lugosi as Dracula. I mean, he has such a presence. I mean, it's such an influential performance. That just he is like, even when he's not on screen, you can feel, like he just has so much presence over the whole movie. Um, and favorite scene. I'd probably say, man, I would probably say like when oh man, when they're when they're zooming in on on Dracula's eyes at the beginning of the movie. That was a very eerie moment. And then favorite Universal monster movie, I would say Bride of Frankenstein.
Okay, sounds good. How about you, Dustin?
I think I like the ship scene actually. Um, when they do it a little bit differently. I'm used to the one from the Gary Oldman Dracula, where it's just like that, like intimidating song, and like people dying like in backdrops of thunder and lightning. And with this, it's just like, yeah, something weird's going on, and the next thing you know, like they're all dead. Like, but Renfield is intercut here and there with him just whispering, it's like, the sun's going down soon. It's like, hey, there's a survivor. It's like, oh, damn. So I enjoy that scene. And I mean, I'm going to be weird and say Renfield, because, I mean, obviously the best actor in this movie is Bela Lugosi. I don't think anybody could really make an argument against that. But I just like that Renfield. He's really memorable. So I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. This was a pretty good Renfield.
Okay, Jake, how about you?
Well, I don't know. Favorite scenes. Probably the most iconic scene would be, again, that first shot of Dracula come down the stairs and greeting him. I would say that a couple of particular dialogue bits, like I do like the part where he's serving Renfield and he's like, I like how he said, "This is very old wine. I hope you will like it." It just says this is very old wine. Aren't you drinking? I never drink wine. That's a great line. But I also shared in the message earlier, near the end. I don't know if we've said anything about Martin and the maid. They show up now and then. Martin, I guess, is sort of like the groundskeeper at this asylum, I guess, or an orderly or some such thing. But he's got this crazy over the top accent or whatever. But there's this part near the end where the maid's like, he's crazy. And Martin's like, they're all crazy. They're all crazy except you and me. Sometimes I have me doubts about you. Just love that line. I'm like, that's what are friends for, right? But I don't know. Those will probably be some of the better. And I want to mention, I got a message here from Brandon. Since he had to cut early, he wanted to make sure we mentioned that his favorite scene was Dracula walking down the street in top hat and cane, which I admit I did enjoy that scene too. And I feel like they borrowed that for the Coppola one, because I do remember Oldman doing the same thing. And I wouldn't be surprised if they borrowed that scene from this movie. But overall, as far as characters, I mean, it's hard to argue with Dracula as the best character. I mean, but Redfield definitely was impressive. I liked this version of him. I was amused by him. He wasn't a major player, but I was amused by Martin as well. They were more my comic relief characters. And again, Helen Chandler as Mina was definitely very sexy in the role, and fairly memorable. So I want to cite all of them, but I would say Lugosi probably at the end of the day would be the Dracula would be the top one. As far as Universal monsters, I'll know more as the month goes on, because to be honest, I don't believe I've ever seen The Invisible Man, so I can't. I've seen takes and variations on the story.
Nobody sees The Invisible Man.
That was very droll. I did enjoy very much the recent film with Elizabeth Moss. I grew up loving the Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man. I've seen variations on the story, and I guess actually, if I had to pick a favorite Universal monster that's independent of the overall story, the Abbott and Costello Invisible Man would probably be my favorite. I really liked that character. And again, I just love the movie overall. But if we're backing up a bit and looking at more as like characters and the overall, I've always been more partial to Dracula. That was probably, if we look at it overall, that's probably my top one.
Okay. I'll do mine, and then we'll do Dave so he can do us out.
I forgot to mention my favorite one is the Creature from the Black Lagoon, but I say that a lot, so I forgot. All right, here you go.
Okay. So my favorite character, of course, is Bella, but Renfield's definitely a second. I think Mr. Fry did a excellent job of doing Renfield. I really think he did really good. Favorite scene? Well, one of my favorite scenes, and I know that David mentioned this when we were watching it, is I liked when there was no driver. I was just kind of the bat leading the coach.
Yeah.
That was just like cool. Then of course, when Bella's on the stairs and he does the famous saying we all know about the listen to them, listen to the children, what music they make,
Right.
So that's such an iconic, throughout all the different versions, And as much as I like this, I have to say one of my favorite monster movies is, I believe it's Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. That's the one that's got all of them in it?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's one of my very favorites. I mean, this one I like very much, of course, because I love Dracula movies and vampire movies. But I just get such a kick out of that one with you got them all, and then you got the comedy, and you got yeah.
Right.
You get them all in House of Dracula too. That's what I liked about that one, you know. And well,
And
not the
now
mummy,
that
but
now that we've laid the groundwork with this, or once this month is over and we've really laid the groundwork, we really do need to come back and hit a couple Abbott and Costello movies. That would be kind of fun somewhere down the road.
I want to see who's on first.
I wouldn't mind hitting some of Lou Costello's singular work too. That would be kind of cool.
I definitely like to hit. I mean, I like Abbott and Costello, but they were not my favorite duo. Laurel and Hardy are my favorite duo.
I don't know. It just you guys are gonna laugh, and David's probably not gonna be happy. But Costello reminds me of David.
Ha 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 ha.
I have told you that many a times when we watch the movies. He does. He just does. But
Anyways,
yes, David, go ahead. I do love you.
So
Can't imagine him getting his voice that high.
I've got a couple.
I think I could get him to.
Anyways, but sorry, I actually remember listening to the original radio programmings of Abbott and Costello. I was actually given like quite a bit of Abbott and Costello stuff. I was into them a lot, at least as far as radio programs go. But anyways, my favorite scenes. Yeah, Tammy mentioned one of them, which is the ghostless riding carriage. And I believe Jake mentioned another one that I was really fond of, the man who was talking to the maid there. That to me is what I remember about the film. But I do want to give a shout out to the guy who played Van Helsing. I really enjoyed Van Helsing's performance, as well as Lugosi. Even though Lugosi, I would have to say, is my favorite actor of the film. I would have to say Renfield is like a second, and I would have to say
I agree.
Van Helsing is up there as well.
He did a great job.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, those are some of my favorites. I think as far as movies go, I love the creepiness of the castles, and especially that opening scene when you see Dracula the first time. Like I said, I like the tracking that happens when they show the coffins in the certain areas. I love a creepy coffin scene. So, but in any case,
So, what's your favorite Universal monster movie?
I would have to say The Mummy.
Which one?
I like all of them. I used to have every single one on VHS.
I hope you don't. When you say you like all of them, you're not referring to the newest one.
I like. No. I'm not talking about The Mummy Impossible.
Because we don't talk about that movie. We don't talk about that movie.
Yeah, that movie is strictly forbidden from conversation. But yeah,
I will invite. by saying that the 1999 Mummy just absolutely beats like the shit out of the original Mummy.
See, I still like the original.
I like the
Mummy.
original too,
They're
but
both solid.
it's a different kind of movie, really. I
Yeah.
mean, it's really hard to compare.
I mean,
because
the Brendan Fraser Mummy has more in common with Indiana Jones than Universal Studios
exactly.
monster movie.
And it has Rachel Weisz. Yay.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, comparing them is not really fair.
I'll give you that. I agree with that. Yeah.
I think I like the Mummies because you actually had to like call the mummy forward by these like 5 10 leaves, and I thought that was like so cool, you know, that you could like control them, you know.
All right. I see Mo's been commenting on the sidebars, and he better not be saying nah about Rachel Weisz.
No, I think he's saying now about Brendan Fraser's Mummy being better because I think he likes the original.
But that being said, I think we've had an awesome discussion here. So hopefully,
I do want to mention one thing before we get done. I wanted to agree with Dustin about the ship scene. I was going to mention it and I forgot. That is actually a really, really awesome scene. Even when you first see the ship in the water, even though that was borrowed from another movie, it just sets the tone for the ship, for what you're going to see into the ship. I think, you know, way it's rocking like that and stuff. And it's really, I've always when I thought of Dracula, I always think of that scene for some reason. Besides thinking of Dracula himself. So I just want to mention how much I love that scene. It was so well done, and the way they portrayed it was definitely really well done. Now go ahead.
So hopefully you enjoyed our discussion on Dracula from 1931. If you get a chance, check out the film and let us know down in the comments what you thought of our discussion. And I believe we'll be back next week with another Universal monster movie. Which does anyone remember which movie?
I was supposed to say, which one is it?
Because I forgot which order that Brandon had them in.
I don't know.
I believe it's possible.
I think he said the Invisible Man or the Mummy next week. One of those two.
I think it's the Invisible Man.
I won't see it.
Neither do I.
Sorry, I was gonna say that joke every time.
But here we are at our outro. So let's go to you, Dustin. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I collect horror movies here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, as I search desperately for science jobs to use my degree. And I have a YouTube channel, The Crypt of Horrors, also shifting to Cryptaxis. And the same for my Instagram, where I post more frequently, The Crypt of Horrors /Cryptaxis. And I'm on Twitter as Cryptaxis, where I'm usually a lot more active, but it's been a pretty bad week, so I've been really far behind on stuff. I'm still doing one movie a day on Letterboxd. You can follow me on Letterboxd at Cryptaxis. Today I did Harry and the Hendersons, and I'm going to do Fright Night after this. So,
yeah, too bad they don't have the sitcom for Harry and the Hendersons on physical at all. It ran for 4 seasons, and it wasn't too bad.
Are you doing the original Fright Night?
It did get us. The sitcom did happen.
Yeah.
And it got 4 seasons? How have I never heard of it before?
There was a Harry and the Hendersons sitcom. I don't know if the
a long time ago.
Yeah.
According to
it didn't last long, like 1 season.
Actually, it ran for 4.
It did.
Yeah.
I remember not lasting very long.
It doesn't feel like it lasted that long.
Oh, it doesn't.
Well, the extras on the Blu-ray, which is pretty good Blu-ray copy, actually, And the extras said that originally it was a sitcom idea, and then they thought they could do better, and so they made a movie, and the movie did okay, I think. Rick Baker's Academy Award is for Harry and the Hendersons, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Are you doing the original?
What?
Huh?
Are you watching the original Fright Night?
Yeah, I have the remake too, which I haven't done a pickup video for that pile of stuff yet, so I'm not gonna do that till I film that. I got the really fancy Steelbook last fall, and that comes with quite a lot of extra stuff on it. Like the original Sony Blu-ray had a good amount of extras, but this one has even more. So, looking forward to it. A lot of good movie watches this month.
Okay.
So let's go over to you, Jake. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
I'm Kotobukijake. I am the co-host of SeptumSin versus World, which is a channel dedicated to physical media. We talk about all kinds of fun stuff. We're in kind of a lull right now. I did a pickup last week, but I think it's going to be a month or more before we do another one. And it looks like our scheduled discussion for Karine has been pushed back another week. So next Tuesday, we should be discussing that one for our anime anticlimax. Meanwhile, I keep very, very busy. I work at the local library system, and I also am the co-founder of RVA Homegrown Natives, where we grow and sell all kinds of native plants. And then I try to get some viewing in when I can, and so I can join these fine folks here and do our weekly discussions. Like I said, I'm looking forward to the Universal Monsters Month. I think it can be kind of fun. It's like a little more laser focused than most of our themes have been, but I think it'll work out pretty well in the end. And we just found out what next month's theme is going to be, and I am looking forward to that as well. You all will find out in due time. And yeah, that'll do it for me. It's fun to, even though I seemed a little tepid on this one and I didn't have a whole lot to say, like I said, it is definitely still a classic movie, and it's good to revisit.
Oh, yeah. Heading over to you, Tammy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I am your fiance, and I go on this channel and another, talk about movies, and enjoy listening to everybody else's thoughts, feelings, opinions, and checking out movies that sometimes I have never seen or heard of before. Some of them I enjoy, some I don't. But that's the whole idea of having this discussion, is to get everybody's opinions and thoughts on movies. And that's about it right now until the summertime.
Alrighty. Heading over to you, Crow. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I'm Kroll, aka Ron. I come on this podcast. I come on this podcast on Sunday and talk about movies that we discuss. Last week, if you got to hear me talk for 4 hours straight about Justice League, that was some fun. Could have gone longer, but I got ushered off. Absolutely love Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Everyone needs a hobby.
Well, hey, to be fair, I never really host a lot, so I was making up for it in this one. But anyways, I'm on other podcasts there and there. We'll be on the anime discussion for Karen if we ever have it. Yeah, and I've been on some other anime discussions as well, and like I said, I pop here and there. I don't have my own YouTube, but I'm around. And I just need to say one more other thing before we go. I need to say The Invisible Man walked into the doctor's office, and the receptionist said, "Sorry, the doctor can't see you right now." But okay, I'm done.
Heading over to you, Forrest. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
All right, my name is Forrest Bennett. I'm an independent film producer, an actor based in Long Island, New York. Movie that I produced recently called Ronald's Little Factory, a dark coming of age tale about growing up Mormon in the 80s, came out a couple weeks ago. I'm also a movie that I acted in called Camp Blood 666 Part 2, the 12th entry in the Camp Blood series. Just came out last week. I acted in that movie, and then just this week I filmed the latest entry in the Amityville Thanksgiving series, Amityville Turkey Day, where I reprised my role as the Reaper. So that's directed by Will Colazzo, written and directed by Will Colazzo. So that should be coming out soon. You can also find me on Instagram under My Name Is Not Gump, where I do comic book pickups. And I'm also on a local public access show here in New York called Under the Radar, where we review and discuss newer movies and TV shows. Also, and I've always got something going on in the pipeline. I'm also in a movie going to be appearing in a trouble movie called Bring on the Damned.
Alrighty. And I believe it is my go. So my name is David Strege. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. So thank you for coming along with us on this fantabulous journey. Glad that we were finally able to go back and visit Dracula, the first one and only. And hopefully you enjoyed our take on it. So, but I also moonlight under a different channel, doing something along the same lines, where we go on and talk every Sunday. Kroll and my fiance join me, and I believe we'll be having another episode Sunday. So come back and listen.
We don't even know what we're seeing yet.
Yeah, which means I gotta talk to Boris about that. Okay, but I also do some video pickups and video reviews on the channel. So like, share, and subscribe. Hopefully we'll be back next week with either the Invisible Man or the Mummy, which I figure we'll talk to Brandon and figure out which one we're doing next week. So, but
I'm pretty sure he said the Invisible Man was next week and the two mummies were back to back.
Okay. Then I guess it will be the Invisible Man, because yeah, that's right. He was saying his choice was on next week. So,
Okay.
yeah. So everyone say good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Grace.
everyone.
Good night, Jim Bob.
Listen to them, the children of the night. What sweet music.
Blood is life.